Did you get some rest yesterday?
Yeah, I got a little bit.
How's your hand?
It's fine. No, my hand is now bionic. It doesn't bother me anymore. The first couple of years it would get me, but now I can sign all day.
You've written. Hi. All right. You've written all these books that have been turned into movies. Does that influence how you write now? Do you see it more in a movie sense?
I haven't written a ton since the movies became a big deal, and since I became more involved with them. So I don't know if it will. I mean, I think right now, working on the sequel to The Host, there are some interesting pressures. Having worked with Saoirse, it's like, you want her in every scene, kind of, but now Wanda is not her, and so it's tricky. I do sometimes think about some of the stories that I've got in the back of my computer that are unfilmable, and that is a good thing in my mind. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, I want to write something you couldn't make into a movie. It seems like that would be kind of fun.
Speaking of unfilmable, was there ever discussion of showing any of Wander's other worlds?
Yeah, actually, it was in the script. We really wanted to do it. Andrew is so amazingly visual. I would have loved to have seen what he would do with that. But we were working on a non-studio budget, and that was one of the first things to go when we were like, okay, we have to cut things. We only ended up with one helicopter. I mean, there were a lot of, the final scene of the movie was actually additional footage we did 6 or 7 months later. Because the movie turned out so well, we were able to, somebody kicked in a little bit more, and so we were able to do that last scene. But, I mean, everything was shoestring. It was a very large budget for an independent movie, but a very small budget for kind of the caliber of movie we were doing. It's tricky.
We were curious about what the process was for casting Emily Browning, for Pet. Well, okay. For Wanda.
All right. Is that out now?
Yeah. Well, Saoirse was talking about it.
We've all seen it.
Get on her. Actually, when we were first doing it, there was, when you're doing a movie, there's some people who are thinking, okay, we want to leave this open to as many movies as we can, and then there's some people who are like, okay, we have a budget. And so originally we were kind of looking. I think it's just like day players, like really, local actresses, and I said, she's taking over the narrator's role. You might want to think about what that would mean if we went ahead. And luckily, at the time, Max was dating Emily, and so we had an in to and she was in to do it. I mean, it's a lot to ask an actress of her caliber to come in and do a day's work. It's kind of a cameo sort of thing, but she was really cool about it, and she's got that amazing face. So it was really cool to have someone who's so striking and so talented come in for a day. That was very nice.
Go ahead, Laura.
Whose idea was it to go with the white and the silver for the host?
Oh, that was Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew, when I visualized this world, it looked like ours, more like ours than the movie does. I just kind of figured they're coming in and taking over us, but they're not going to change that much. And they didn't. He still had that mindset, but he thought they would make it a little prettier and shinier than we do. And he thought because they are silver themselves, they'd have an affinity for that color, and that sort of became from the very beginning a touchstone for him of things that are more soul-oriented. There always is this hint of silver in it. He's really amazingly visual. It's so amazing. You guys have seen it, so you know how the look of it is. He just really knows how to make every pebble in the scene is there for a reason and has a certain look to it. It's really
well. It makes a good contrast between the humans in the caves and the dirt to the streamlined cleanliness.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of Emily Browning, we all know that you had thought about her for Bella. So what was it like actually having her in one of your characters?
It was really cool, and I never said anything to her. I felt a little weird because does she know that people were photoshopping her into those things? It's possible. But she has been someone I've been a fan of for a long time. So it's always exciting to get to work with people that you think are awesome. So that was cool.
What took this film so long to get made? Because it's been over 3 years now since it was first announced, and you even had a different director at one point. So why so long?
Well, it took a long time to publish it too. This book has just kind of been, for me, sort of a more private world for a while. And so it was, when they first wanted to make it, it was kind of this dream thing, right? Let's get together and make a movie. We didn't have a lot of concrete things to help move us forward. And Andrew was one of those very concrete things, with all of his talent and everything that he's done. But his baby got greenlit right around the time. In time. And so then he, obviously that was something that was really important to him. And I thought I didn't want to change in the middle. It was kind of worried me a bit. But, Suzanne was great. And now I kind of have this real desire to work with her at some future point because I enjoyed her so much. And so hopefully we can get together and work on a project at some point. But then things, as we were kind of cobbling together financing and not going to studio where it takes a lot longer. And as we were doing that, all of a sudden In Time was over. And so we were kind of back to, we can do this the way we sort of originally imagined it. And that was exciting. But anytime you're putting a movie project together,
It takes a while.
there are
So many parts.
ups and downs. There are people who come in and there are people who fall out. And it's like, it's a lot of panic all the time with an independent movie.
How did your role as producer differ from the Twilight series? Did you feel more pressure? Do you feel more free being a new series and that people might not be familiar with the new movie?
Well, I was a lot more involved with this one from the beginning. And I think my role on this is what people imagine my role has been all along as a producer, because you think, she's producing and she wrote the book, so she's probably involved in every decision. And on the Twilight movies, that wasn't always the case. With our original cast, I just really heard about them after the fact. And so I was more involved with the casting later on, but just for side characters that had little parts, and so it didn't affect the feel of it as much. With the host, I was involved with every casting choice that we made. I was going over the script with Andrew from, with each version of it. I really was involved in everything on this one, so it feels more like it's mine in some ways. I mean, that's the wrong word to use, because when you have a filmmaker like Andrew Niccol doing it, it's very much his work, and I wouldn't want to take credit for that. But it does feel closer to me because I got to be so involved with it, which is really nice. I don't really feel the pressure that way with, Twilight was so huge, so now does the host need to be huge? To me, it just needed to be good, and I was so pleased with it. I really am proud of it, and so for me, that's enough. I know for the financiers, they'd probably like for it to be huge, but for me, I was just really happy to have it be a really quality thing I could be proud of.
Did you ever have a moment with, the cast and the host saying, this could get a little crazy from you coming into Twilight, the fandom that had been around that and all the fan camps and everything. Did you ever have that moment with the new cast that you worked with saying,
Everyone asks them that, and I think for them it's kind of a jinxy thing, right? To say, "Oh yeah, I'm totally prepared," and they don't, and they can't think that way. I mean, when you're an actor, you have a role that you see an amazing movie made. You're like, "Oh my gosh, this is," and then no one sees the movie, and here's this amazing performance. I think that as an actor, you kind of come to terms with what will be, because you have to. I don't know. I don't know if they would. I don't think you can prepare for something like that. I don't know that it would ever be the same thing. I don't know if you can't have the same thing twice. So I don't imagine it would be. But they don't need it. These kids, they're going places anyway. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you've seen how good they are. They're all of them ready to do really well, and it's not going to depend on this movie for sure.
So the tagline of the movie is "Choose to fight, choose to love, choose to believe." What's something that you believe in and fight for?
I didn't come up with that tagline, so I don't know. I mean, I guess this sounds boring, but I mean, honestly, it's my kids, my family. That's really the only thing I fight for, I guess.
It's interesting that you would say that, because your last two books, Bring Dawn and Host, both had children in pretty difficult, intense situations. Was that on purpose because family's so important, or is that just how the story played out?
I mean, I don't ever do anything on purpose, but I don't think it's an accident that my stories go toward that direction, because the relationship I have with my children, the amount of time I spend worrying about them, the amount of my mind that they control at any given point, that so much of me belongs to them. I think my stories will always have some element that will reflect back to the way I feel about them, because my family is the strongest relationship and the most life-changing one in my life, where, it's made me a different person, and so that's going to come out in the stories subconsciously all the time.
Kind of off subject, but what's going on with Anna dressing blood?
We're at a very early stage with the development. We're working on finding a writer for the script, but Down a Dark Hall is sort of the first on the conveyor belt. I don't know how to say that right. And so that when we get that to a place, then we'll kind of move on to Anna.
There were a couple different untimely outcomes for some of the characters in the film rather than the book. Will that influence you writing their characters in the future?
Untimely outcomes, what do you mean?
Like Aaron and Brant dying or the father killing himself?
No. I mean, the father killing himself happens in the novel.
Oh.
That's the same, although it's real visually different out in the bayou. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, Aaron and Brant would still. I'm not going to off them because they'll still be part of the story.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I think that there are some things that will affect the fact that Sunny doesn't appear in the story.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be because she's a larger character, and so that's somebody that is going to have to. We're going to have to do something there. I mean, we're lucky we got Burns in because that was the very end, and he's also someone that I think when they originally were doing it, they were looking at hiring someone who was very physically different, just a day player in Louisiana, and I was like, oh, you might not want to yourself in this scene. Sometimes it's hard to be like, oh, just trust me on this one. Let's go a little younger. Let's not have him be 60.
So the prank thing is really big, and Jake asked us to prank you, but I can't do it.
Of course he did, because he's on the losing end right now, and I'm living in fear.
We want to ask your advice about a prank that we plan on doing to him.
Okay, I can do that.
So Max gave us this idea that's why this is here, to have him sign it, and as he turns around, I act like I'm sneezing and spray a bottle of Evian mist on him.
Poor Jake and his germophobia. I don't know. He might not laugh at that one. I think the prank war needs to end. I mean, we've spent a lot of time together in the last month. We've heard the same answers from each other for a month. We're all really bored with each other. And I mean, actually, I love those events. They're really fun. But we are tired a lot and kind of looking for ways to have fun. And the ping pong ball thing.
That was hilarious.
That was hilarious.
It was hilarious last night. During the signing, it wasn't as hilarious. It's like, what am I supposed to do with all these ping pong balls? But you don't give me bullets and not expect me to shoot them at you. So that was his mistake. But so I don't know. I hope it ends because I'm next if it doesn't.
So on set, well, sorry.
Hold on, wait.
Okay, you started as an author, now you're doing production. Do you see yourself long-term splitting writing and also being a producer? Do you really like producing? It seems like
I do. You know, it's kind of, I don't know, have you ever read a book and like imagined how it would be to film and like the actors and sort of cast in your head? And I've always done that a little bit. I like movie adaptations, but I almost always prefer the book. I can think of only one exception. And I think that's just something that I find fun. It's like, doll houses and dressing up your Barbies and whatever. It's like playing a game. It's a whole different kind of creativity. It's a more collaborative space where you actually have people to hang out with who aren't your imaginary friends, which can be nice too. But the writing is a lot, it's more of a pure form for a creative outlet. You don't have to compromise on anything. Actors don't tell you no. You don't have to cut scenes out for length. You can do whatever you want, and it's a more free situation, but you also have to have private time to do it, which is really hard to come by, even without the movies. My kids are growing up. They're more interactive. It's hard for me to really disconnect my brain from them as much as I could when they were little and didn't have as many conversations going on. But so I do want to do both. I don't want to be as active as a producer, physically there all the time. I'd rather be more involved at the beginning stages, the scripting, the casting, that kind of stuff I can do from home. And that's why I have a partner, because she's going to do all the physical stuff. And I'll just sit home and say, how's it going? Is it very awesome? That's it. So I'll be home writing, and she'll be out in the dirt and the dust and staying up all night doing night shoots. It's going to be perfect.
what was the exception? You said there was one movie.
Probably the Bourne movies. I like that he really is an assassin. It kind of I'd seen the movies first, and then you read the book and like it's all cop out, and he's actually a good guy. And no, I wanted to be a killer. So I like that. All right, there was another one back here.
I was going back to the pranks, but being on set with everybody, Jake was obviously the most of the prankster.
We didn't prank that much on set. Because there's a lot to engage you, and you've got really long hours and everything. There's a lot of repetition on a press tour, and then you're kind of looking for an outlet. Whereas on set, there's a lot to do mentally. Jake, particularly, I mean, all of them do, but Jake takes his role very seriously. He very much gets into that space where the character is, and so he's thinking like that and trying to be that person. And so it kept him from too much mischief because he was very busy.
And is there anything special that you took or was given?
I was
from-
given. I've never taken anything, and sometimes I wish I had. It's like, oh, I would have liked that, but I you know, then I felt bad. So I was given 2 things. One, I have one of the peace sprays, which is really cool. Probably the coolest thing I own. I'm supposed to get a cryopod. I haven't yet. I'm looking forward to that. And then I have a rock that we didn't use. You know, in the book, there's a scene where she has the scar on her face, and it's a big scar. It's like supposed to be the palm of her hand, and he has to hit her with the rock. And for a multitude of reasons, we didn't do that, but we planned on it. And so I have this great, it looks so real, and it's out of foam. And it's my favorite thing because when I first got home, I was throwing it at everybody. And, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, look at this rock I got from set. And it's just this foam thing that doesn't hurt. And so I had a lot of fun with that, but it doesn't actually appear in the movie. I also have teacups from Austin Land. One of them from a scene that was cut, and then one that they use in the scenes.
What is
So I know you said that,
Sony Classics purchased it at Sundance, and it's supposed to come out end of summer, hopefully. I'm excited for it to come out. It's really
I
fun.
love the book. Can't wait to see the movie.
Thank you.
so I know that you said that Andrew Niccol is brilliant, and you were really excited to have him direct this for you and bring the adaptation to life. But I remember you also said that he had some really, really good ideas that you were kind of kicking yourself that you didn't think of. One of them being the peace spray and taking the violence and the guns away because they were, you know, not violent. They were more pure. Are there any other ideas that he came up with that?
That was the main thing. A couple of ideas that just hadn't occurred to me. You know, we're filming in Louisiana because that's where you film now, and when we were doing the Twilight movies there, the whole time we were trying to hide the fact that we were in Louisiana. So we were, you know, everything was on sound stages, and when we were outside, we found the one stand of trees in the entire place, and then brought in extra trunks to make it look like a bigger forest, and we were always trying to disguise where we were. And Andrew said, you know, what if we embrace it? We have Melanie B from Louisiana, and then we can shoot in the swamp and with the houses on the pillars, and we can be out on a beautiful plantation with the trees full of moss and everything. And I thought that was a really good, because it doesn't matter in the story. She can be from anywhere. It doesn't affect the story if she's not from, you know, San Diego, and if it doesn't change anything. And so then we got to really celebrate the beauties of where we were. Because he's always good at finding the best look for anything, and I loved it. The whole time we were on Twilight, we never got to go and film in the swamp, which was really cool. It was fun to get to see all of the really cool parts of Louisiana.
I had read the book on the plane here and then watched the movie last night, and I was noticing like how insanely visual he really is, like to keep from the book. Were you involved in that a lot, like keeping it, like, do you know what I mean? It really feels like you took exactly your complete visuals from the book and put them into the...
Well, I think he heightened the visuals a lot. Little things that I wish, I mean, if we put all the footage we had in, it would be 4 hours long. But I wish... But a lot of it isn't like, it's not like big, you know, pivotal scenes or even dialogue. It's just, I wish you could see more of the souls walking around, because their wardrobe and just the way they hold themselves, and we shot some pieces that we didn't fit everything in, but it just looks so cool. And I didn't picture them dressing like just that little bit more, with a little bit more polish than we do.
I was noticing so much about their outfits, and I usually don't do that when I watch films, and I was like, oh, look at their shoes, like, look at their shirts, like, I was so conscious of it that entire time.
He's like, if he was filming our little round table right now, he would come over and he would mess with your hand like two, and then he'd be like, and he'd come back and he'd go 1 millimeter more, and then he'd come back and he'd 1 millimeter more. He cares about every hair that's in the scene. It's an amazing thing. It can make for a long filming day, but in the end, it's totally worth it. So.
Now you said you would probably have like 4 hours of footage. So what was going into the decision to keep it just at 2 hours instead of maybe pushing it to 2.5?
I mean, it's a big time commitment when you hear the movie is 2.5 hours, and you know, some things that you love can start to feel bloated, I think, in the time, you know, because you're looking at all these nuances, and someone who comes to see the movie wants the story. I mean, I don't know, some people, I would be happy to sit through 2.5 hours of a movie that I loved. But then I have said in movies that I didn't love that they were 2.5 hour long, and it felt very long. It wasn't that big of a sacrifice. I felt like it was a lot harder on Austin Land, actually, because we have a 3.5 hour comedy, And we had to cut whole scenes, and nobody wants a comedy over 90 minutes, but we were cutting ridiculously funny scenes because we had to keep the story in. That's where the DVD extras are going to be amazing. I'm going to love that.
Just one last question, I guess. From someone who hasn't read the book and saw it last night, that's actually Jordan. He he wanted to know, how did the souls initially come to Earth? How did they insert themselves into the first human? Which is something I never thought about.
I mean, I think it's a little bit in there. I think actually the opening, I get confused because I've had the opening for the second book written for a really long time. That's something I did in the early stages because I wasn't sure where I was going to put it. That goes into more detail with that. But they came with their spider bodies because those are really useful. You know, they have a lot. They're strong and they can handle a lot. And so they just had to get to a few people because once you have one and a cryotank, one of the big cryotanks where they keep the babies, where there's like, you know, a million of them. It doesn't take long. So they it talks about in the beginning of the next one how they worked in. Like you find the preschool teacher, or probably not preschool, you'd want like the high school teacher of the kid who is the Secret Service agent. And through that you work into the president like in 4 easy steps. And then once you have the president and his people under, you start controlling the information. You're doing this in every country. And then, you know, I would invite Lori over for an afternoon lunch and she would say, oh, of course I haven't seen Stephenie in a while. And then she would leave a different person because, you know, it'd be that smooth. And you would go home and your husband and your kids and everybody that you know and all of your friends would then slowly, it wouldn't take that long because it just works out exponentially. And it's very quiet and no one knows what's going on because you don't lose your memories. There's nothing to give you away. In the movie, the eyes are a little bit more obvious, right?
Yeah.
And so it would be easier. But in the books, you have to have a direct light. And even then, it's kind of just a reflection that's a little off. But it's not so obvious to be like, there's something different about you. It would just be, oh, hey, my neighbors are a lot nicer lately. And everyone's doing it. Is that feeling?
Thank you.
I have to say that was probably the most interesting interview I'm going to do all day. So thank you. Questions? I appreciate it.
Thank you.
She does mention that a little bit. I think